If you miss this move, you're going to regret it for the rest of the bull run. Bitcoin is coiling just under all-time highs, and it's about to unleash a 50,000 point vertical pump that's going to ignite a full-blown altcoin supercycle. We are deep in the force phase of the Crypton cycle, and when this snaps, altcoins aren't just going to run, they're going to detonate. And in this video, I'm dropping 10 altcoins primed for insane gains. And the last few are some of the biggest sleepers with the most upside. So definitely watch to the end or you're going to get left behind. And of course, subscribe right now, because if you miss my next video, you're going to be trading blind in the biggest bull run of your life. All right, guys, let's just get right into the charts here. And I'm going to explain exactly why we could be on the verge of a 50,000 point pump in Bitcoin. Right now, we are in what's called the force phase of the Crypton cycle. If you don't know the Crypton cycle, it's my blueprint for trading altcoins. I've turned small amounts of money into millions multiple times simply by following this blueprint. Now, I'm going to give you a little quick preview of what this blueprint looks like. And if you want more advanced training on this, I have a full entire mentorship exactly how to trade every step of this cycle. But right now, we are in what's called the force phase of the cycle on the Bitcoin chart. And that is when we are having an ascending triangle breakout above ATH. And when that happens, that is the last leg of the bull run. And that is typically when you see just euphoric price action, these extreme pumps to the upside, everyone finally starting to participate. But you also have to know that this is the ending phase of the altcoin, that this is the last phase of the bull run. So you need to be locking in gains on the way up before the Armageddon signals. And then we go deep into a bear market that happens every time. So you need to be able to lock in gains. But right now, we are in the force phase of this cycle, but you have to also take into fact, guys, that we have been on an amazing bull run for 966 days. So it will come to an end eventually, but it doesn't come to an end until after the force pattern breakout, and we get one last pump to the upside. Everyone goes balls deep, and that's why you see such a massive move to the upside. So there's another thing we can look at here. If we look at the Bitcoin super cycle, as well as the Bitcoin log corridor, and then go into a logarithmic chart and bring it back to the weekly, we can see that Bitcoin, well, this is futures. We can see that Bitcoin had never topped out ever in a cycle unless it meets the red line right here, okay? Red line tapped in, that was the top at 1,000. Red line tapped in, that was the top at 18,000. Red line tapped in, that was the top at 61,000. And we are yet to pump into that red line. And that current red line is about 168,000 versus the current price of about 110. So that would potentially give us 50 to 60,000 points on Bitcoin just in a quick pump. Now, it doesn't mean that instantly when it hits that red line, that means the top. We can see in the past, it hit the red line even right here and then went up an extension, and then even right here at about 39, and then topped at about 60. Now, in order for it to hit the red line right now, it's at 166,000. That's a little over 50,000 points, but that doesn't mean it can't have an extension before it actually pulls back. But the most important thing to understand here is that we haven't seen an end to the bull market until that actual red line is met, and then we see a reversal, and then it finally breaks down the 50-day moving average, as we can see here, 50-day moving average break, 50-day moving average break, waiting for that 50-day moving average break again, and then we see Armageddon, and we actually see the big push to the downside. So that is the top-down analysis of Bitcoin and why I believe we do have a lot of upside potential. You also have to factor in that if we look at the US stock market, such as the NASDAQ, we are breaking ATH. And typically when you see an ATH break on the NASDAQ, it's followed up by quite an extensive move to the upside, especially after some sort of war is announced. Now, we just had a 12-day war apparently with Israel, but typically after wars, there is a big run in the markets. So we can see we have a war plus an ATH break, which typically leads to a massive pump to the upside. In this case, maybe $30,000 plus on NASDAQ. And we do need to see a bull market in stocks because we've never seen a crypto bull without a stock market bull. So we are indicating that we are on the beginning and the cusp of a good run for the remainder of 2025 in US stocks, which then in which then provides confluence for Bitcoin to continue to go on its run. And in order for altcoins to pump, we certainly need Bitcoin and stocks to be in a major run. So let's just get into what are my favorite coins right now. First and foremost, Ethereum is in Ethereum is in what's called a survival pattern. After a major breakdown to the downside, we see a revival followed by a massive pump and then a survival pattern before it reaches ATH. And that's exactly where we are at with Ethereum right now. But most altcoins aren't even in this phase yet. Some are like Ethereum, but most are actually still back down here in what I call the revival phase. And this is when we see a huge amount of upside potential on these coins because they still are so far off of ATH that we have a lot of room to run before we reach the next resistance of their ATH. Now, if they get into a force pattern, they could really go on some epic runs, but I don't believe a lot of coins are gonna go on an ATH run. What's probably gonna happen is they're gonna have these big bumps to HTH, but by the time they are up there, Bitcoin's going to be somewhere parabolic, way above ATH, getting close to the end of its run before these coins probably pump to the bottom. And while most people are waiting for the ATH run on a lot of these altcoins, Bitcoin's probably going to dump, and so are those altcoins. No one's ever going to lock in gains because they're going to have this fantasy about the ATH run that never comes. So I encourage you to lock in gains because that's the only way you ever make money in a bull run before the inevitable crash. Okay, so before we get into these actual altcoins, where should you trade those altcoins? Well, if you don't want to have a KYC broker, I highly recommend Blowfin. They have a lot of spot and their futures list is just vast. There's so many memes and brand new coins all here on Blowfin. So there is like $5,000 in sign up bonuses if you use my affiliate link below. If you don't have a lot of money, you can get access upwards of $200,000 in crypto funding at Hydra Funding. Any of these plans, you can now get 20% off with the coupon code FOOST20. And what's amazing is that you no longer have to take these one-phase and two-phase challenges. In the next week or two, Hydra Funding is launching what's called instant funding. No more having to pass a challenge phase. You get access to instant funding. Now, the buy-in capital is going to be a little bit more because you don't have to take the challenge, but that is a true game changer. So, what are some of my favorite coins? First and foremost, I do love this setup on Uni. If we take a look here at Uni, we've seen a lot of big pumps to the upside, but they've failed every time. And now each time that this fails and we retest this zone, this level is getting weaker before we're probably finally going to break out above this area here and then retest ATH. And if we look at the daily chart, we do have what's called a revival pattern in the making, pre-breakout, perfect retest of this demand zone here. If it breaks above 864 or so, I definitely think we're going on a massive pump to retest this $20 level. We can see this is in the revival phase of the altcoin cycle. Uni is still primed in here, pre-breakout. You can see that same exact cycle that played out back here, revival, pump, ATH, similar situation. Why I said you have to lock in gains. While this is breaking ATH here, past here, Bitcoin was already done with its cycle. And while this looked like it was just getting ready to break out, Bitcoin was somewhere up here, getting ready to dump. So you have to look at where Bitcoin is in its cycle and be sure to lock in gains on the way up. Now, this level is getting weaker. The more times it tests this level, it becomes a higher probability that that level can actually break. The only caveat is, will Bitcoin still have enough legs and juice in it by the time Uni actually gets up here to see that run come into fruition? But right now, we are still deeply undervalued pre-breakout of the revival, so I'm definitely happy about this setup. Ondo, similar situation. We saw a revival pattern break back here. We took full advantage of this, broke ATH, locked in gains on the way up. We are now in another potential revival pattern, pre-breakout. All right, we have the high here, came back down, retested demand. If this can actually form up here and this beautiful longer term revival pattern, we could easily break above this high at about 120. I would say I'd be looking to lock in gains around $2 per coin. Who knows if it breaks all-time highs? It might, but I definitely want to be locking in on the gains on the way up. You don't even have to lock in full gains. Maybe lock in 20% here, lock in 20% here. Maybe you want to hold the rest of the 60% for an ATH and put your stop below here, okay? But lock in gains along the way up or you're never going to make any money. GMT, another beautiful setup that I do love. This is also in a beautiful revival pattern. Weekly supply right here. Price perfectly came down into this demand zone where we scooped up. It's now breaking this descending channel here. And now it's going to look like, now it's looking like it's going to pump all the way back up into the neckline of the revival. Again, perfect revival setup here on GMT. Once it retests this level, it's probably going to see some sort of consolidation, maybe even a good level to take some profits because that is significantly higher, 52% higher than current price. That would be a nice trade in itself right there. But for the longer term trade, if Bitcoin is still remaining intact in its trend, this could easily break that level. See it pump upwards of 15 to 30 cents per coin to be locking in gains. Not looking for an ATH run on here. I'm just looking to lock in profits somewhere between here and here in this range of those previous highs. And that would be an absolutely perfect trade from this very deep oversold territory, about 450%. You can't complain with a 450% trade if you actually get that. GPU, another setup that's looking beautiful. We have a deep trend here, actually broke ATH lows there, swooped everyone, now breaking above this trend. This is an AI coin. We can see breaking this, this, and this, now shifting the trend to bullish here. And if we get this set up, this could easily form up a revival pattern breakout. And once it breaks above this high at about 61 cents, I definitely think we're coming upwards of potential $2 to $202.50 here, which is about a 500% gain. We've seen this thing make massive moves in the past, but you definitely want to be locking in the gains on the way up. It might run into resistance right here, and that's all it has. But the more times it taps this level, the weaker that becomes, and the higher probability we're going to see a pump through that level, which is then going to go into the next supply zone, which is about 130, upwards of $2.28 per coin. Pixel, also long here. Pixel Dixel, same situation. We're in a massive group of revival pattern breakouts, coming back down, retesting this beautiful demand zone, right? As long as we sustain this and start forming up here and then retest this level, that's going to be the secondary touch of the revival and then a massive pump to the upside, okay? So Pixel also looking great. It also just broke above degenerate trend and also is breaking of this descending wedge channel. Now that is usually the first indication of the secondary pump to the upside after the test of the demand or support level, whatever you're wanting to call it. That is the first signal that we're probably going to come back up and retest the neckline of the revival. We're certainly sitting in a nice risk reward area right down here. You still have time to be buying in here without buying up here with the risk of it pumping back or dumping back down to the next demand or support zone. This is the perfect area to be buying. Next up is Super. I love Super. Super has always treated me well. I got balls deep down here and here. We rode this thing all the way up last bull run. I was hoping for an ATH break because Ethereum was looking like it's getting for an ATH break. Unfortunately, I stopped out right down here after we accumulated and loaded up down here. We have now reloaded up again, back down in this zone, looking for this to pump and break out of a revival pattern. We have that first initial peak here. We have higher lows coming in. Super is looking absolutely amazing. We have now broken the descending channel here, which is that first signal that we're gonna bottom out there and start pumping to the upside. And once this breaks about 90 cents, that's pushing back over $1. I think we're at least coming back up to the ATH here and maybe even break that and then actually pump. It's actually not ATH. ATH is somewhere back here, but we might actually break above this, and we can even look at this, like, right? We have first touch, second touch. Now a third touch of that is going to be a longer term breakout trade. And if that breaks, right, and Bitcoin continues to go on its run, this could easily break ATH and just go on some fucking epic bender. So I'm definitely bullish on Super. Love the setup. Long term, it's looking good, and short term, just for a quick trade, locking in gains somewhere around $2 per coin. That would be a fire trade. We'll see what happens after it kind of consolidates in this zone. And where is Bitcoin at that point? But I love that setup. IMX, also, revival pattern setup. Love this setup here. Retouch that bottom right into demand. It's also breaking the descending trend here, which is the first signal that we're going to see a pump and continuation back into supply zone. And once we tap into that level, if we do, that's the formation of the potential revival before we might see the breakout of this level upwards of $2 per coin on IMX. Beam, I'm also long here. This thing was a wild cookie. I actually got stopped out as it broke down these lows here because I got in back down here and it fucked me over. But now I am back in the game for round 2. After this broke the descending trend, we got in here on this dip, looking beautiful, and we also now have the potential for a revival pattern formation if this actually goes on a continuation, retest this high, form up new highs. Boom. Then we have a revival, retest upwards of 20.024, upwards of these ATH. I have no idea, but I'm going to be locking in gains on the way up as we come back up and retest ATH here. SUI, also looking super beautiful. Retested this perfect weekly demand zone. If you look at the weekly chart, that was just absolutely perfect, right into weekly demand. And now on the daily chart, breaking that descending trend here, looking absolutely perfect. I definitely think we're at least coming up to $4 per coin yet again, and maybe even an ATH break on this. This is a very bullish coin. It sustained itself very, very well. If we do see a big run on Bitcoin, I think this is going to have an ATH run and maybe even go up to $20 per coin. That's pretty much it. Those are my altcoins. Well, last and not least, XRP, probably my #1 play here. I have a full video coming out about XRP and why I think this could be such a big run. And one of the biggest reasons I think it could be the biggest coin here, at least the safest, biggest pump. Some of these altcoins can pump maybe a higher percentage, but they're more risky. They're not going to see as much downside. There's not going to be as much downside risk on XRP as trading some of these fucking GPUs, Ondos, GMTs. Those could easily drop 50%. I don't think XRP has the capability of doing that. As we've seen, it's sustained itself quite a bit. The reason why I'm so bullish on XRP is, one, I'll talk about the fundamental factors in my next video, but mostly just due to the chart here. It is the most bullish chart of any altcoin in the game other than Bitcoin. Bitcoin's already at ATH, about to break it. But when you look at what other coins are about to break ATH, XRP is the most in alignment with Bitcoin. All these other fucking shit coins, they're not going to ATH, okay? They have way too much resistance, way too much supply to break through. By the time Bitcoin gets up to like 150, 160, they're just going to be probably just under ATH. And by that time, there's going to be so much supply there, they're probably going to dump off those levels. But if Bitcoin gets to like 115, 120, we could already potentially be breaking ATH on XRP. And then if we pumped from 120 to 150, 160 on Bitcoin, we're already probably going to be at all-time highs here on XRP. And at that point, there's no resistance. It's called blue skies ahead. There's no telling how high we could pump. And right now, if XRP got to $20 per coin, that would mean it would match the market cap of Bitcoin's current price at 109,000 or something. So if we do see a run on Bitcoin, I believe XRP is going to be the #2 market cap altcoin in the game. Maybe someday even take over Bitcoin, depending on how integrated it gets into the global payment financial system. So we'll see how this cookie cooks out. All right. But definitely subscribe, like, comment what you think on this video. What coins did I miss? There's obviously a lot of other fucking coins that are in beautiful, beautiful setups, but I don't want to have over risk. So those are just the coins that I'm currently in right now. XRP is a monumental coin. And again, if you want to get trading on one of these platforms, there's like $5,000 in bonuses when you sign up with my link in Blowfin below. Great altcoin place, no KYC. And also if you want to trade crypto with challenge funding or even instant funding, which is coming out in like the next week or two, you can get 20% off with the coupon code FOOS20. Anyways, guys, we got a bull run to capitalize on. So let's fucking go. Let's get to it. See you in the next one.